The Mike Tyson-Jake Paul was scripted. That was a scripted fight. It was blatantly obvious. Go watch Mike train. And John Jones is an absolute problem. Problem. The scariest man on the planet.
Okay, so hold on. I want to talk about the Tyson thing for a second. So you're saying that it was scripted because Tyson trained really hard, but then was like throwing the fight in the ring?
Many are upset over the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight, with some people claiming that it was rigged because many people bet a lot of money and they lost a lot of money. Allegedly, there's this script that got leaked showing how the fight was supposed to go down between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. This was actually covered by World Star Hip Hop. So let's read this alleged script and see how the fight was supposed to go down. So round one was supposed to go like this. The opening bell rings and Tyson, showing flashes of his old form, immediately stalks forward with his signature bob and weave style. Paul maintains distance, circling the ring cautiously. Tyson lands a few jabs, but Paul's youth shows in his superior ability. Paul connects with a quick 1-2 combination before retreating. Tyson's timing appears slightly off.
The boxing world hasn't seen a scandal this juicy since the Mayweather-McGregor debacle. Critics and so-called experts have unanimously branded this spectacle as the boxing equivalent of a reality TV show, heavily scripted, painfully predictable, and ultimately disappointing. Fans, bless their optimistic hearts, thought they were in for a nostalgic clash of old-school grit versus new-age bravado. Instead, what they got was a poorly choreographed dance that left everyone questioning why they stayed up past their bedtime. Social media exploded with allegations that the whole thing was just a shameless cash grab, orchestrated not to crown a victor, but to fatten bank accounts. And honestly, the script leak just added fuel to the dumpster fire. Let's break it down. As soon as the bell rang, Tyson, bless his aging soul, came out swinging, or at least wobbling, with his classic bob and weave style. It was like watching a vintage car try to rev its engine. Sure, it's iconic, but you know it's not built for the modern road. Critics were quick to point out that even without the leaked script, everyone and their grandma could have predicted Tyson's moves. Former boxing champion Carl Froch didn't hold back, claiming Tyson's performance felt contractually restricted. He suggested that if Tyson had been given free rein, Jake Paul wouldn't have lasted a single round. But let's be real, no one expected Tyson to land one of those signature knockouts at 58 years old. This wasn't the Iron Mike we grew up watching. It was more like Tin Mike. Now, Jake Paul. Oh, Jake. The YouTuber turned boxer strutted into the ring like he had something to prove. And maybe he did. To his fans, his haters, and anyone questioning why he was fighting a man old enough to be his dad.
To fight last night.
Man, I mean, to me, that was like watching some WWE type of shit. To me, there's two different ways to look at it. Like, I was out at a restaurant and we were drinking and all this type of shit. Couldn't fully hear the commentary and all that. But for what I'm watching, to me, there was times that I felt like Mike could have hit this dude and didn't hit him. You know what I mean? But then on the converse, you know, people saying, yo, this dude Jake Paul was actually giving Mike some mercy. You know what I mean? Mike's legs was looking bad, and you know, I think the whole thing was scripted.
Jake's camp made sure to hype up his track record, reminding everyone that he's knocked out every opponent he's faced. Well, except for that one actual boxer he fought before Tyson. But let's not kid ourselves. Pummeling retired athletes and influencers isn't exactly the stuff of legends. Even Froch couldn't resist taking a dig, saying, "What pleasure can you take from beating an old Mike Tyson?" It's like bragging about dunking on a 5'2" middle schooler. As the fight dragged on, it became painfully obvious that Tyson's legs were not cooperating. He looked good during the weigh-in, flaunting a six-pack that had fans wondering if he'd found the fountain of youth. But once he stepped into the ring, reality hit harder than any punch Jake threw. By the third round, Tyson had stopped throwing punches altogether. It was as if he realized midway through that his body wasn't about that life anymore. Meanwhile, Jake strutted around the ring, probably thinking he was the second coming of Muhammad Ali. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. Roy Jones Jr., commentating from ringside, tried to keep the energy up, but even he couldn't ignore Tyson's lackluster performance. "That's just Mike being Mike," he said at one point, referring to Tyson biting his gloves instead of, fighting. Fans weren't buying it.
Whole thing was just a money grab. And for a lot of us that love Mike, and despite what he said in that interview with the girl about the legacy, we love him and his legacy. And we didn't like what we saw last night. What we saw last night seemed like something that very much tarnished his legacy for a little bit of bread, And somebody will say, oh, 20 million, that's not a little bit of money. Well, I was talking to my man Isaiah Washington earlier, and he was breaking it down as far as like, nigga, the government takes half, you know what I mean? Then you got to give your handlers or whatever 20%, you might graciously walk away with 5.
Social media was ablaze with memes and hot takes, with one user summing it up perfectly. "We just watched a 58-year-old man box. What did we expect?" It's a valid point. Nostalgia can only carry you so far before reality smacks you in the face. And in this case, it was a sobering reminder that Father Time remains undefeated. Adding to the drama, reports surfaced that Tyson had been hospitalized the day before the fight. Allegedly, he wasn't in top condition, but pushed through to avoid postponing the match again. If true, this raises some serious ethical questions. Why was this fight allowed to proceed? Was it really worth risking Tyson's health for a payday? Critics argue that the whole event was a disgrace to the sport, turning boxing into a sideshow instead of the noble competition it's supposed to be. And honestly, they might have a point. Let's not forget Amber Rose, who chimed in with her 2 cents. She confidently predicted Jake Paul would win, and when asked why, she said, "He's 27 years old, been working hard, and has been improving as a boxer." While her comments seemed harmless, they only added to the growing sentiment that the fight's outcome was never in doubt. Tyson supporters couldn't help but roll their eyes, knowing full well their hero was being set up to fail. Then there was the spectacle of it all. Netflix, trying to flex its muscles in the sports streaming arena, botched the whole thing. Streams lagged, viewers complained, and the platform's big debut in live sports became a meme-worthy disaster. For many, the technical issues were a fitting metaphor for the fight itself. Overhyped, underwhelming, and ultimately a letdown. If Netflix wanted to make a splash, they succeeded, just not in the way they intended.
You know what I mean? You might get 5 out of that 20. You see what I'm saying? So is $5 million, and that's nothing to sneeze at. I'd love to be paid $5 million for something. But is that worth tarnishing your legacy? Someone like Mike Tyson, I think a lot of us would say no, Yeah, I think it was just a disappointing performance. Yeah, I didn't like the fact that Mike turned around and gave us his ass to kiss for the whole world to see. That was some crazy shit too. Like, I don't know what that was about. Like, Mike just don't give a f.
The aftermath was a mix of anger, disappointment, and a tinge of sadness. Fans who grew up idolizing Tyson were heartbroken to see their hero reduced to this. It wasn't just a loss, it was a tarnishing of a legacy. Watching Tyson struggle in the ring was like watching Michael Jordan miss a layup. It just felt wrong. Even those who tuned in out of morbid curiosity were left feeling empty, wondering why they wasted their time and money. Critics also couldn't help but compare this debacle to the UFC, where Dana White consistently delivers real, competitive fights. Say what you will about Dana, but at least his fighters are in their prime, battling it out without gimmicks. In contrast, this boxing match felt like a cheap cash grab, a far cry from the sport's golden days.
I never, in the history of boxing, seen no shit like that. Like, in the history of sports, I never seen no shit like that. In the locker room and all this type of shit. Like, that was crazy. I don't know if that was, again, part of the scripting of what we watched last night, but that was nasty work. And yeah. And I just feel like these Paul dudes, Jake Paul and the other one, I feel like they're trying to just cut the line. They're using money and all this to try to fight some of our greatest fighters, our greatest black fighters too. They're taking our greatest black fighters, fighting them after their prime and saying, hey, I fought them, like, you know what I mean? Trying to almost be like that great white hope, but not legitimately.
And let's talk about the financial side of things. The fight was a massive economic success, with millions of viewers tuning in despite the backlash. But is that really a win? If anything, it highlights the sad state of boxing today, where spectacle often trumps skill. The fact that a fight like this could draw such massive attention says more about the audience than the athletes. Even Tyson's fellow legends weren't impressed. Evander Holyfield, never one to mince words, openly criticized the fight. He suggested something felt off, adding to the speculation that Tyson was intentionally holding back.
Even though you just informed me that this was a sanctioned fight. This was a sanctioned fight, which means this is officially on Mike Tyson's record, that he lost to this guy. And it's on Jake Paul's record that he won, that he beat Mike Tyson. And although it was officially sanctioned, does that mean that the fight was truly official? Does that mean that, you know, they couldn't have agreed on an outcome? Because I believe regardless, there was going to be an outcome. One got paid $40 million and one got paid $20 million. I believe the guy that got paid $40 million, in the script, he was going to win regardless. And maybe that's why Mike was biting on his glove the whole night and shit. Because he was so frustrated that the fact that he can't just let his hands go. Because we saw clips of Mike training where he was looking explosive, bro.
It didn't feel like Mike, he said, echoing the sentiments of countless fans. Holyfield's comments carried weight, reminding everyone that even the greats can't escape the ravages of time. The fight's biggest takeaway? Nostalgia can only take you so far.
Where was that Mike? Where was that Mike last night? Like, I just feel like they were like, you are not going to hit this boy. You are not going to break this man. And you're going to and he's going to hit you though. For this money, you're going to let him hit you. Now, again, people's like, man, Jake could have handled him. Maybe he could have, you know? Mike was looking bad, but at the same time, I know experience can sometimes overcome youth, you know? And the boxing knowledge that Mike has, and the, you know, if he was working out and all that, that inner power that an older man can garner, like, I don't know, man. I just feel like he never let his hands go, ever, in the you know what I mean? But Jake Paul might have not let his fully go either, so, yeah.
Fans wanted a glimpse of the old Tyson, the unstoppable force who dominated the 80s and 90s. What they got instead was a painful reminder that those days are long gone. Sure, there were flashes of brilliance, 30 seconds in the first round where Tyson looked sharp, but they were fleeting. After that, it was all downhill. Jake Paul, for his part, continues to polarize the boxing world. Some respect his hustle, acknowledging that he's bringing new eyes to the sport. Others see him as a sideshow, a gimmick who's more about marketing than merit. Love him or hate him, you can't deny that he knows how to generate buzz.
So you personally, right, you feel like the fight was fake?
I feel like all those Jake Paul fights are not real. I mean, I feel like they're boxing to some degree, but I feel like it's definitely a lot of entertainment that's mixed into it. I feel like these guys feel like, yo, this is the new formula. Like, trust me, we got this, you know, this is the new, this is boxing for the internet age, for the, you know, for the IG age and all of this type of shit. These dudes was just, what, influencers who decided, yo, I want to box. And now, 4 years later, you get to fight Mike Tyson? Come on. Come on, there's people that's been paying their dues all their life and never get a chance like that. You understand what I'm saying? And you could just cut the line like this. It's because this is entertainment. This is, you know what I mean? It's like WWE. And people know that WWE is fake and they still go to it. They still watch this. They still have their favorite fighters and all that type of shit.
But at what cost? For many, this fight was the final straw, a sign that boxing has lost its way. As the dust settled, the boxing world was left grappling with a bitter truth. This wasn't just a blemish on the sport, it was a full-blown stain. Hardcore fans couldn't help but feel like the sacred ring had been reduced to a circus arena. Gone were the days when boxers fought for legacy, for pride, for something bigger than themselves. Now, it seemed like the game had turned into a grotesque spectacle, where fame and fortune dictated everything. Even the casual viewers, who tuned in expecting a flashy showdown, left feeling cheated.
It's just that boxing comes from more of a pure place that we don't believe that they would do some shit like this. But when you got dudes like this, like Jake Paul and them, they're the promoters, right? Like, so when you have people that don't even necessarily have any kind of real attachment to the sport, any real love for the sport, about its traditions and all of that, and are saying, listen, I found us a new way to make money. You want to make money or not? You know what I mean? That's what the fuck he's saying. And especially dudes that thought my biggest bags were behind me. They're like, I'll get a free bag with these white boys. Why not? You know what I mean? Let them live out their fantasies and shit. Because that's what the fuck this is. They're just living out their fantasies.
Me personally, me knowing what I know now, because I had no idea that, you know, whoever lost that fight, it's on a permanent record. If it was an exhibition, I would have never had no issue with it. But yeah, that's crazy, man. Me personally, I would have never took the 20 million.
Right. Unless you, again, you like that, man. I don't give a you know what I mean? And I guess just that's the attitude he's taking. Now, I thought Mike was getting bread from the cannabis and all this type of shit. I mean, I guess an extra $5 million is an extra $5 million. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, he ain't walk away with no 20. So that, you know, a lot of people try to justify it like that. But that's not your take-home pay. I'm sorry. But again, nobody paying me $5 million right now for nothing, so I can't talk shit about that. That's what they're gonna say in the comments. Nobody paying you $5 million. Okay, you're right. You're right.
The general sentiment was unanimous. This wasn't boxing. It was entertainment at its lowest denominator, a facade dressed up in gloves and trunks. And poor Tyson, the man who once made opponents tremble with a single stare. Seeing him struggle through those rounds was nothing short of heartbreaking. For many, it was like watching an aging lion being paraded around as a shadow of its former glory. Tyson had nothing left to prove. His legacy was cemented long before Jake Paul ever picked up a pair of gloves. Yet, here he was, a 58-year-old icon dragged into a circus act for reasons that were painfully transparent. Sure, there were whispers of his financial motivations, but was it really worth the price of diluting his legacy? That's the question fans couldn't stop asking. Jake Paul, of course, strutted out of the arena with his usual cocky grin, basking in the attention whether it was positive or negative. Love him or hate him, you have to admit, Jake is a master marketer. He's not here to be the best boxer, he's here to sell the most tickets. And in that regard, he succeeded spectacularly. The fight trended worldwide, drew millions of eyeballs, and lined the pockets of everyone involved. But at what cost? For every new fan Jake brings to the sport, he alienates a purist who longs for the days of Ali, Foreman, and Tyson in his prime. The sport may be evolving, but not everyone is convinced it's for the better. In the end, the Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson fight wasn't just a disappointment. It was a tragedy. not because of the result, but because of what it represented: the commodification of a sport that was once about heart, skill, and glory. Tyson deserved better. Boxing deserved better. And frankly, so did we.